Good evening, welcome all of you. So, this evening we are having a great discussion on thoughts and aphorisms. The topic for discussion is on four great events in history. So, this is the topic of discussion. We are going to have a brief discussion, of course, on thoughts and aphorisms by Sri Aurobindo. So, four great events in history. Sri Aurobindo quotes number one, the siege of Troy, number one, life and the crucifixion of Christ. Number three, exile of Krishna in Vrindavan, and Kalaki with Arjun in the field of Kurukshetra. So these are the four great events in history, world's history we have ever seen, what is described by Sri Aurobindo. Number one, I will tell it again, siege of Troy. Then second, life and crucifixion of Christ, and the third, exile of Krishna in Vrindavan and the Kalaki of Arjun in the field of Kurukshetra. So, what is the outcome of this event? That's what we are going to stress upon very interestingly. How not it is not our own idea; it is from Sri Aurobindo. The siege of Troy created Hellas. That is a great event. Siege of Troy created Hellas. The exile in Vrindavan created devotional religion. For before there was only meditation and worship, but it created devotional religion. Crucifixion of Christ. Christ from the cross humanized Europe, entire Europe. Then Kaloki at Kurukshetra will yet liberate humanity. That is the four output and four great events of the history. Yet it is said that none of these four events ever happened. That's what the view of Sri Aurobindo already we have seen. Then we are going to another aphorism, that is on 42 we have seen. They say that the Gospels are forgeries and the Krishna a creation of the poets. That's what normally we keep listening. Krishna is the creation of the great poets. Gospels are forgeries. Thank God then for the forgeries and the bow down before the creators. Thanks, because this you may take, the world may take it as the gospels forgeries, as forgeries, Krishna as the creation of the poets, but Sri Aurobindo quotes thinks that is this creation ever it has happened. For that we are thankful. So then thank God then for the forgeries and the bow down before the creators. Anyway, it has been created, and these are the great creations before us. Again, we are going for the next one. If God assigns to me my place in hell, just imagine Sri Aurobindo's own original confession. If God assigns me in my place in hell, I don't know why I should aspire to heaven. He knows best what is for my welfare. So suppose God has assigned me the seat in hell. Why shall I aspire for the heaven? Because for me, God knows better than me what really is most needful. That is what again I want to repeat. If God assigns to me a place in my place in hell, I don't know why I should aspire to heaven. He knows best what is for my welfare. So that is, I think, confess honestly speaking, this is a great one. Really you will be enjoying, and of course it is a really it is a great one. So again, if God draw me towards the heaven, if God initially hell, then Sri Aurobindo goes the other side. If God draw me to heaven, then even if His other hand strive to keep me in hell, yet must I struggle upward. Yet must I struggle upward, because God knows what is best, even if two hands, one pulling me to heaven and another downwards. But thing is that I must be interested in moving up. That is the evolutionary man, and moreover Godhead in human form. So I will try to repeat it again. If God draw me up towards heaven, then, even if his other hand strive to keep me in the hell, yet must I struggle upward. Because our to move forward is our right. So from there we came, and to there we must return back. Next, only those thoughts during the course nicely. Only those thoughts are true, the opposite of which are also true in the own time and application. Just imagine how this antithesis we can see contradiction. Only those thoughts are true, the opposite of which is also true in its own time and application. Indisputable dogmas are the most dangerous kind of falsehoods. Just imagine how you. I think it is very much rare to listen the last part of the sentence. Indisputable aphorism rather. Indisputable dogmas are most dangerous kind of falsehoods. So dispute must be there. From there the truth will come back. So you can remember, only those thoughts are true, the opposite of which are also true in its own time and application. So we must not be in dogma or falsehood. Dogmas are most dangerous type of falsehoods. Again we are going for logic. Logic is the worst enemy of the truth. Actually, it contradicts. It keeps its mental reasoning and tries to say that what I feel, what I do is right. Logic is the worst enemy of truth, as self-righteous is the worst enemy of virtues. Just imagine how the great sentence has been sentenced by actually logically removed by Sri Aurobindo. How he has written great sentence. Logic is the worst enemy of truth. The worst enemy of truth is logic. Like this, as self righteousness is the worst enemy of the virtue. For the one can see its own errors, nor others its own imperfections. So it has got two sides. One has got its error, logic, and versus truth, and the second thing, imperfection, we can find self-righteousness versus virtue. So in one place, in the first one, we can find the errors, and in the second, we can find imperfections. So this can't be. It is totally not coming to the surface. It can't be realized. Can't realize. Logic is the worst enemy of truth, and as self-righteousness is the worst enemy of virtue. For the one can't see its own errors, nor the other, second one, its own imperfections. Very difficult, they can't visualize the point. Again, next one we are going. When I was asleep in the ignorance. Just imagine, it is Sri Aurobindo's comments, Sri Aurobindo's explanation. When I was asleep in the ignorance, I came to a place of meditation full of holy men, and I found their company wearisome, and the place of a prison. Just imagine how great things have been described and displayed, of course, analyzed here. When I was asleep in the ignorance, I came to a place of meditation. In sleep, asleep condition, I came to a place of meditation full of holy men. The people who were meditating, they were fully holy men. And I found their company wearisome, and the place of a prison. That is what in asleep I saw. But when I awoke, that was the condition of asleep. And when I awoke, what happened? I saw what I saw. God took me to a prison and turned me into the place of meditation and his trysting ground. So that was the initially, and in asleep I went to the people who were that was meditation full of holy men, and I found a company of wearisome and the place of a prison. And when I got up, the opposite condition, God take me to a prison and turned me into a place of meditation and his trysting ground. That's what can be done, because whenever we are going, we must be, it analyzes, and God takes him, and that is the true meditation place, and you must go to the meditation hall in a very awakening manner. You get up in an awakening condition, you have to go. So again, the next prism we are going to have, when I read a wearisome book through and with pleasure. Read, naturally, there is no problem in it. Wearisome book through and with pleasure, it perceived all the perfections of its wearisomeness. Then I knew that my mind was conquered. Then I found that the mind is conquered, and it is only through the recitation, reading of the book. Again, I want to know, because there are top secrets, something is kept still behind. When I read a wearisome book through and with pleasure, yet perceived all the perfection of the perfection of its wearisomeness, then I knew that my mind is fully conquered. Then again, we are going forward. I knew my mind to be conquered. That's the same overcoming mind. I knew my mind can be conquered when it admitted the beauty of the hideous, but felt perfectly when other men shrank back or hated. That is another goodness, something is kept hidden. I knew my mind can to be conquered when it admired the beauty of the hideous. When it is admired, then only mind is conquered. It felt perfectly why other men shrank back or hated. That reading. So because they don't want their mind to be conquered, they want to steal the twilight. They want to stay in grayness, darkness. So they don't want their mind to be conquered at all. To feel and love the God of beauty, and to feel and love the God of beauty, and the good in the ugly and the evil, and still to feel and love whom? To feel and love the God of beauty, and the good in the ugly and evil, and still yearn in utter love to heal it its ugliness and its evil. And this is the real virtue and morality. Thing is very clear. Message is very clear. To feel and love the God of beauty, to feel and love the God of beauty, and good in the ugly and evil, and still that has to be done, and still yearn to utter love to heal it and the ugliness, love to utter love to heal the ugliness and its evil. This is the real virtue and morality. Again, we are going to the next step, that is aphorism or number 51. To hate the sinner is the worst sin. Oof. Really, because this common sense we don't have. We go in the contradictory opposite way. To hate the sinner is the worst sin, for it is hating the God, because God is in the sinner, God is in the virtuer also. Man of virtue and man of sin, everywhere God is fulfilled. To hate the sinner is the worst sin, for it is hating God. For he who commits it glories in his superior virtue, commits that sin and glories in his superior virtue. Everywhere he is present, his best presence is there. So it is not wise, advisable, because out of ignorance we hate, and to hate the sinner is the worst sin. Next, when I hear the righteous wrath, hear of a righteous wrath. When I hear of a righteous wrath, I wonder at man's capacity of self-deception. When I hear this righteous wrath, already know wrath and righteous wrath, I wonder at man's capacity for self-deception. Capacity for self-deception, I wonder at. And again, this is a miracle that man can love God yet fail to love humanity. Then Sri Aurobindo again questions, with whom are they in love then? Beautiful, really beautiful. It is an excellent sentence, and of course, this is one of the best aphorisms. This is a miracle that man can love God. It is possible men can love God. They are going to temples, worshipping, adoring, and of course offering themselves like anything. So they have the trust. It is a miracle that men can love God yet fail to love humanity. They can feel love, but they fail to love the humanity. Then Sri Aurobindo quotes, of course, here. Then with whom are they in love? Them. With whom they are in love? Them. That is the question. That is the thing. Sri Aurobindo tried loving God, but failing to love the humanity. Then, with bearing the humanity, if you wish to love the God, then who is in which way you are in love? Whom you are really you are loving? Again, we can find most of the times the quarrel among the sects. So the quarrels of religious sects are like disputing of pots. keeping nearby, and they are disputing among themselves. So because don't know, they are prepared from the same material by the same architect or same mason. So the quarrels of the religious sects are like disputing of poets, which shall be alone allowed to hold the immoralized nectar, which shall be alone allowed to hold the immoralizing nectar. Let them dispute during the course, but the thing for us is to get the nectar in whatever pot or attain immortality. It does not matter why you are quarreling with whom, purpose is what. But thing is that during the course, let them dispute, no problem. But the thing for us is to get the nectar in whatever pot and attain immortality. That is the purpose. Again, you say that the flavor of the pot alters the liquor. Another, just imagine, you can find Sri Aurobindo, a great yogi and all. Of course, he has also seen the other side through his yogic vision. Of course, you can find whatever you find in the ordinary subhuman vision. Sri Aurobindo has gone to that extent also. You said that the flavor of the pot alters the liquor. This is the taste, but what can deprive of of its immortalizing faculty? So just imagine, you can change the pot, but what about the immortality? This is the taste, but not the but what can deprive you of its immortalizing the faculty? So then again we can go, be wide in me, O Varuna. So different Vedic gods we keep, Sri Aurobindo keeps adoring, and of course expecting, just giving, just praying, adoring, and of course chanting. So we can see lot of Vedic gods, how actually this upasana, adoration, aradhana is going on. See, be wide in me, O Varuna. Be mighty in me, O Indra. Be wide in me, O Varuna. That is sea of God, sea God, God of seas, Lord of seas. Be wide in me, in me. Be mighty in me, O Indra. That's strength. O sun, be very bright and luminous, because sun represents brightness and luminosity. O moon, be full of charm and sweetness. That is in moon, Chandra, full of charm and sweetness. Be fierce and terrible, O Rudra. Rudra, that fierce and terrible, Rudra. Then be impetuous and swift, O Maruta. Maruta means that wind, Pavan. So then we can be strong and bold, O Aryama. Be strong and bold, O Aryama. Be voluptuous and pleasurable, O Bhaga. Be tender and kind, and loving and passionate, O Mitra. Tender and kind and loving and passionate, O Mitra. Be bright and revealing, O dawn. Bright and divine, of course, revealing, O dawn. O night, be solemn and pregnant. You have to conceive something. Be solemn and pregnant. O life, be full ready and buoyant. O life, be full, ready and buoyant. O death, lead my steps in from mansion to mansion. Harmonize all these, O Brahma, Brahmanspati. So let me not be subject to these gods, O Kali. Let me not be subject to these gods, O Kali. I am Kali, naked, black and naked in the world. I am Durga, goddess of the proud and strong, and Lasmi, queen of the fair and fortunate. So just imagine about the great gods. It has been described here, that beautiful description. Be wide in me, O Varuna. Be mighty in me, O Indra. O sun, be very bright and luminous. O moon, be full of charm and sweetness. Be fierce and terrible, O Rudra. Be impetuous and sweet, O Maruta. Be strong and bold, O Aryama. Be voluptuous and pleasurable, O Bhaga. Be tender and kind and loving and passionate, O Mitra. Be bright and revealing, O dawn. O night, be solemn and pregnant. O life, be full, ready and buoyant. O death, lead my steps from mansion to mansion. Harmonize all these, O Brahmaspati. Let me not be subject to these gods, O Kali. Then that is a big definition. Anyway, when, O eager disputant, when, O eager disputant, thou hast prevailed in a debate, disputant and prevailed over in a debate, thou then art thou greatly to be pitied. When disputant, you are disputing. Second, prevailed in a debate, then art thou greatly in the to be pitied. That pity is necessary for you, for thou hast lost a chance of widening knowledge, because you are just, instead of widening for knowledge, in there you are quarreling over a short gain debate, you are disputing about yourself. Again, because the tiger acts according to his nature. Tiger acts according to his nature and knows not anything else. Therefore, he is the divine and there is no evil in him. Because he is the divine and no evil in him, if he questioned himself, then he would be a criminal. That is a beautiful, it is a one you must remember. That is a really a top one, very much remarkable one. Because the tiger acts according to his nature and knows not anything else, therefore he is divine, therefore no evil in him. If he questioned himself, then he would be a criminal. Spotless, divine, immaculate, spotless. Again, the animal before he is corrupted, has not yet eaten of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Animal before he is corrupted has not yet eaten of the tree of knowledge and of good and evil. But what happens? The gods has abandoned it for its tree of eternal life. Man stands between upper heaven and the lower nature. This is the difference. Initially, there is a great comparison between animal and the god, and man is actually staying in between. That is a great one. So I will try to quote it again. The animal before he is corrupted has not eaten of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This, on the contrary, on that side, the God has abandoned it for the tree of eternal. And third, we can see the man stands between the upper heaven and the lower nature, in between, because man is a connecting link between the demigod and the beast. And finally, we are coming to the concluding one, that is aphorism number 60. One of the greatest comforts of religion. One of the greatest comforts of religion that you can get hold of God sometimes and give him a satisfactory beating. That is a great and great thing has been described here. One of the greatest comforts of religion, that you can get hold of God sometimes and get him a satisfactory beating. People mock at the folly of savages who beat their gods when their prayers are not answered. But it is mockers who are fools and the savages. What else Sri Aurobindo would have called? Again, I want to repeat. One of the greatest comforts of religion, about the religion, greatest comforts of religion, that you can get hold of God sometimes and give him a satisfactory beating. Give him a satisfactory beating and get hold of God. And what about the people? People mock at the folly of savages who beat their gods when the prayer is not answered. Most of the time, suppose their prayer is not answered, then these savages, they beat the god. That's what happened. They beat their gods. But it is the mockers who mocks really, who are the fools and the savages. Neither do this one nor do this one. So this is the great point we have ever seen. Anyway, it is a great topic. It is a great adventure. Like this, we are going forward with a little bit on a great description we saw. There is no mortality. It is only immortal who can die. There is no mortality. It is the immortals who can die. The mortal could neither be born nor perish. Just imagine difference between mortal and immortal. There is no mortality. It is only the immortals that die. The mortal could neither born nor perish. So there is nothing finity. It is only the infinity who can make for himself limits. So just imagine how it has been defined under the great definition. The finite can have no beginning nor end. But for the very act of convincing the beginning and the end, of course, declares as infinity. Very great definition, great distinction between finity and infinity. So naturally, it is worth watching, worth reading. Anyway, time is clicking away. We have to stop here and wait for the another sort of description for the next description. Next phase we will go. Vande Mataram.